The emergency session of the Galactic Harmony Coalition Council was the first of its kind in the organization's 500-year history. Never before had the Peaceful Alliance faced a crisis that required immediate action. The council chambers, on Serenity Prime, usually filled with gentle discussion and quiet debate, now buzzed with panicked voices from 47 different species. Admiral Te-Ho stood before the Great Assembly, his crystalline body dim with exhaustion and fear. Around him sat representatives from every member world, floating gas beings, plant-like creatures that swayed as they spoke, small furry animals that chittered anxiously, and dozens of other peaceful species. The situation is worse than we initially thought, Admiral Te-Ho began, his words translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. These humans are not just violent, they are professionally violent. Their entire civilization appears to be built around the concept of warfare. On the great screens that surrounded the chamber, images from the human presentation played again. But now the Coalition Council members were seeing them with new understanding. Those weren't random conflicts. They were systematic campaigns of destruction carried out with terrifying efficiency. Counselor Frilna, a delicate butterfly-like being from the Serenity Cluster, fluttered her wings in distress. Admiral Te-Ho, surely you must be mistaken. No species could survive thousands of years of constant warfare. They would have destroyed themselves. That's what makes them so dangerous, Admiral Te-Ho replied. They didn't destroy themselves. They got better at it. In the Coalition's Intelligence Center, teams of analysts were working around the clock to understand the humans they had welcomed so warmly just hours before. What they were finding painted a picture of a species unlike anything they had ever encountered. Dr. Humzi, the Coalition's leading expert on alien psychology, presented her findings to the emergency session. The small slug-like creature spoke in a voice that trembled with academic fascination and personal terror. Council members, she began, I have studied the human cultural data they provided, and I must report that these beings represent a complete contradiction to everything we know about intelligent life. She activated a holographic display showing human cities. To the Coalition's eyes, they looked strange and fortress-like, with too many straight lines and too few organic curves. Look at their architecture, Dr. Humzi continued. Every building is designed like a defensive position. Their roads are laid out in grids that allow rapid movement of military forces. Even their civilian structures incorporate security features that we would consider paranoid. The display shifted to show human art and literature, paintings of battles, stories of heroes fighting against impossible odds, music that stirred the soul with themes of courage and sacrifice. Their entertainment focuses obsessively on conflict and competition, the doctor explained. They create fictional stories about war for pleasure. They watch recordings of their past battles for entertainment. They play games where the objective is to defeat opponents. Counselor Bloomheart, a flower-like being who spoke for the plant nations, rustled her petals nervously. Doctor, surely not all of their culture is focused on violence. That's the truly disturbing part, Dr. Humzi replied. Their peaceful activities are often just training for warfare in disguise. They call it sports, competitive physical activities where individuals or teams attempt to defeat each other according to arbitrary rules. Images of human sporting events appeared on the screens. To the Coalition Council, they looked like ritualized combat training. Humans throwing projectiles with deadly accuracy, racing at dangerous speeds and engaging in controlled physical confrontations. They practice warfare constantly, the doctor continued, even during peacetime. They maintain it as a skill set, passing knowledge from generation to generation. Most disturbing of all, they seem to enjoy it. Meanwhile, high above the planet, Colonel Kyung-Soo was having his own difficult conversation. As the human military attaché, it was his job to answer the Coalition's questions about human military capabilities. He was finding it harder than he had expected. Colonel, Admiral Te-Ho asked via communication link, your historian mentioned that the weapons shown in his presentation were old things. What did he mean by that? Colonel Kyung-Soo shifted uncomfortably in his chair aboard the Peacekeeper. How could he explain modern human warfare to beings who had never experienced conflict? Admiral, he said carefully. The weapons Minho showed were from our historical archives. Human military technology has advanced considerably since then. Advanced how? Admiral Taeho pressed. Colonel Kyung-soo looked at Captain So-young, who nodded for him to continue. There was no point in hiding the truth now. Well, he began, those nuclear weapons from World War II that destroyed entire cities? Modern human warships carry weapons that are thousands of times more powerful. The conventional bombs that could level buildings. Our current smart munitions can take out specific rooms in buildings without damaging the structures around them. The silence from the alien end of the communication was deafening. Colonel, Admiral Taeho's voice was barely a whisper. How many weapons does humanity currently possess? I don't think I can give you an exact number, Colonel Kyung-soo admitted. Human military doctrine is based on redundancy and overwhelming force. We have enough weapons to fight wars on multiple fronts simultaneously. Multiple fronts? Admiral, humans have never fought a war where extinction wasn't a possibility. Every conflict could potentially be the last one our species ever faces. So we prepare for everything. Invasion from space, attack from other dimensions, rebellion by artificial intelligences, environmental collapse, solar system destruction. Everything. Admiral Taeho was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, again, his voice carried a weight of terrible understanding. Colonel, what percentage of your species' resources are devoted to military purposes? Colonel Kyung-soo did some quick mental calculations, including the active military, defense contractors, research and development, strategic reserves, veteran support systems, and allied support, probably around 40% of our total economic output. The communication link went silent again, down. In the Coalition Intelligence Center, engineer Yoon-ji was providing her own shocking revelations. The human engineer had been invited to examine Coalition technology as part of the cultural exchange, but now her analysis was being used for a very different purpose. Your ships are beautiful, she told the assembled Coalition engineers, but they're not built to survive combat. This hull plating would crumble under the impact of our smallest projectile weapons. Your power systems couldn't support defensive shields strong enough to stop a human training torpedo. The Coalition engineers looked at each other in confusion. These terms meant nothing to them. Defensive shields, projectile weapons, training torpedoes? They had no frame of reference for such things. What is a training torpedo? Asked Chief Engineer Whistlesong, a delicate bird-like creature whose species had never needed to invent weapons. It's a practice weapon we use to train our crews, Yoon-ji explained. It has no warhead, it's just a high-speed projectile designed to test defensive systems. It's one of the weakest weapons in our arsenal. And it could destroy our ships? Yoon-ji looked uncomfortable. Chief Engineer, our training torpedoes could destroy your entire fleet. They're designed to penetrate military-grade armor and shields. Your ships are like paper boats in a hurricane. The Coalition engineers stared at her in horror. Their most advanced vessels, the pride of dozens of civilizations, were nothing more than targets to human military technology. Back in the council chambers, the emergency session was reaching a crescendo of panic. Reports were flooding in from across Coalition space as member worlds began to grasp the implications of humanity's existence. The gentle spirits of Meditation 7 are requesting immediate evacuation assistance, reported Communications Officer Harmony Bell. They believe the humans will begin conquest operations within days. The crystal gardens of Serenity Prime's third moon are going into deep hibernation, added another aide. They plan to sleep until the human threat passes. 17 member worlds have activated their civilian evacuation protocols. A third officer called out. They're asking for transport to the Outer Rim territories. Admiral Taeho watched the chaos with growing despair. The mere existence of humanity was tearing apart everything the Coalition had built. Fear was spreading faster than wildfire, consuming the peace and harmony that had taken centuries to achieve. Order! Order! Called Council Speaker Gentle Voice, a wise old creature whose species had been among the founding members of the Coalition. We must not let panic overcome reason. These humans may be dangerous, but they came here in peace. Their leader spoke of protection, not conquest. "But Speaker," protested Councillor Frilna, "how can we trust beings whose idea of peace includes weapons capable of destroying planets? How can we coexist with predators who treat mass destruction as a normal part of life?" The question hung in the air like a poison cloud. Every member of the council had seen the images of human warfare, heard the casual way the human historian had spoken of millions of deaths. How could such beings ever truly be peaceful? Serenity Prime was the most beautiful planet Admiral Tejo had ever seen, and he never got tired of looking at it. The capital world of the Galactic Harmony Coalition was a masterpiece of peaceful cooperation. Crystal cities grew from the ground, like flowers, their walls singing in harmony with the planet's gentle winds. Gardens filled every space between buildings, tended by the plant-like Herbani who made beauty wherever they went. The human fleet followed the coalition ships into orbit, and Captain So Young found herself staring at the planet below through the Peacekeeper's main screen. It really was beautiful, like something from a fairy tale. Cities that looked like they were made of light, forests that seemed to glow with their own inner fire, and oceans that reflected the sky in perfect mirror. Stillness. "It's incredible," Lieutenant Sujin whispered from her station. "I've never seen anything so peaceful." Captain So Young nodded, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The planet had no orbital defense stations, no military satellites, no weapons platforms of any kind. It was completely defenseless. What kind of civilization left their capital planet unprotected? "Captain," Lieutenant Commander Wan Young reported, "scans show no defensive installations anywhere in the system. No military bases, no weapon platforms, nothing." "That's impossible," Captain So Young replied. "Every system has defenses. They have to. But the scans didn't lie. The Serenity Prime system was completely undefended. It was like finding a city, with no police, no walls, and no locks on the doors. Down on the planet's surface, the welcome ceremony was already beginning. Admiral Tejo had invited representatives from all 47 coalition species to attend. The Great Hall of Harmony was filled with beings of every shape and size imaginable, all of them excited to meet the newest members of their peaceful family. Captain So Young and her senior officers were transported down to the planet in a coalition shuttle. The alien pilot, a small furry creature called a fluffling, chattered happily about how wonderful it was to have new friends. Captain So Young smiled and nodded, but her hand never moved far from the emergency communicator that would signal her ship if something went wrong. The Great Hall of Harmony was amazing. The ceiling was made of living crystal that changed colors with the mood of the room. The walls were covered in art from dozens of different species, all of it peaceful and beautiful. Gentle music played from hidden speakers, and the air smelled like flowers. Hee-Jin, Earth's cultural ambassador, stood at the center of the hall with her collection of human gifts. She was a small woman with kind eyes and a warm smile, perfect for representing humanity's peaceful intentions. She had brought art, music, and literature from Earth, all of it carefully chosen to show the best of human culture. "Honored friends," Hee-Jin began, her words translated into dozens of different languages at once. "Humanity is grateful for this warm welcome. We bring gifts from our world to share with yours." The first gift was a painting of a sunset over a peaceful lake. The alien delegates sighed with pleasure as they looked at it. Next came a recording of a human symphony, the music filling the hall with beautiful sounds. Then Hee-Jin presented books of poetry, stories of love and friendship, and pictures of Earth's most beautiful places. Admiral Tejo was delighted. These gifts proved that humans were exactly the kind of gentle, artistic people the Coalition loved to welcome. They appreciated beauty, they created art, and they clearly understood the value of peace and harmony. "Thank you, Ambassador Hee-Jin," he said, his crystalline body glowing warm gold. "These gifts are wonderful. Would you be willing to tell us more about human culture?" Hee-Jin smiled. "Of course, perhaps our historian, Minho, could share some information about our past." Minho was a tall man with gray hair and a serious expression. He had been chosen for this mission because he was an expert on human history and culture. He had also been chosen because his version of history focused on human achievements in art, science, and philosophy. "Greetings," Minho said as he stepped forward. "I would be happy to share the story of humanity with you." He activated his presentation device and images of Earth appeared on screens throughout the hall. Beautiful cities, great works of art, amazing scientific discoveries. The alien delegates watched with growing interest as Minho told them about human civilization. But then something went wrong. Minho was talking about how humans had overcome their differences to work together for peace. To illustrate his point, he showed some historical footage of past conflicts that humanity had resolved. "Throughout our history," he said, "humans have had disagreements from time to time, but we always found ways to work things out." The first image appeared on the screens. It showed knights in armor fighting with swords. The alien delegates gasped. They had never seen anything like it. These humans were attacking each other with metal weapons. "This was from our medieval period," Minho continued, not noticing the shocked expressions around him. "Just a small disagreement about territory. Only lasted about 100 years. Admiral Tejo felt his crystalline body growing cold. 100 years of fighting? And Minho called it a small disagreement? The next image was worse. It showed soldiers with guns fighting in trenches, bodies lying in mud, explosions in the distance. "This was from what we call World War I, Minho said casually. "Another minor conflict. About 20 million people died, but we learned from it and moved on. Several alien delegates fainted. 20 million dead in a minor conflict? Commander Yelnari's gaseous body started changing colors rapidly, a sign of extreme distress among his people. But Minho wasn't finished. The next image showed tanks rolling across a battlefield, planes dropping bombs on cities, mushroom clouds rising over destroyed landscapes. World War II was a bit bigger, Minho admitted. Around 70 million casualties. But again, we worked things out and became friends afterward. Humans are very good at forgetting old arguments." Admiral Tejo couldn't believe what he was hearing. These creatures had killed 70 million of their own species in a single conflict, and this historian was talking about it like it was a minor disagreement between neighbors. The presentation continued, showing more images of human warfare. Vietnam, Korea, the Gulf War, Afghanistan. Each conflict was described as a small misunderstanding or a brief disagreement, but the images showed destruction beyond anything the coalition species could imagine. "Of course," Minho said as he reached the end of his presentation, "humans have always been very creative when it comes to solving problems. We've invented many different ways to resolve conflicts." The final images showed modern weapons, missiles that could level entire cities, submarines that could hide underwater for months, fighter jets that could fly faster than sound, tanks that could destroy buildings with a single shot. "These are just some of the tools we developed for peacekeeping," Minho explained helpfully. "Nothing too serious, of course. Most of our weapons are much more advanced than these old things." The Great Hall of Harmony had gone completely silent. Every alien delegate was staring at the screens in horror. These weren't peaceful beings, like themselves. These were predators from a death world. Creatures that had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing their own species. Admiral Tejo finally found his voice. "Ambassador Hie Jin," he said, his words trembling. "How many of these conflicts has your species had?" Hie Jin looked confused by the question. "Oh, thousands," she replied cheerfully. "We've always been very good at working out our differences. Most wars only last a few years, and we usually keep the casualties under 1 million or so." She said it like she was talking about the weather. "Commander." Yelnari's gaseous form was now flashing bright red, the color of panic among his people. Around the hall, other aliens were backing away from the human delegation. Some were making emergency calls to their homeworlds. Admiral Tejo realized with growing horror that they had made a terrible mistake. The peaceful message from Earth hadn't been from a gentle species like themselves. It had been from apex predators who were temporarily not killing each other. "Security," he whispered into his communicator. "We have a problem. The Zephyrian security forces were the only military unit in the coalition. though they were more like police than real soldiers. They were insect-like beings with hard shells and multiple arms, evolved from a species that had once been hunters. But even they had given up violence generations ago, using their natural weapons only for ceremonial purposes. A dozen Zephyrian guards entered the Great Hall of Harmony, their ceremonial spears gleaming in the crystal light. Their leader, Captain Zektor, approached the human delegation. "I am sorry," Captain Zektor said, his translated words formal and polite, "but I must ask you to come with us. The Coalition Council needs to discuss this situation." Captain So Young, who had been quietly watching the presentation with growing alarm, knew trouble when she saw it. The aliens had gone from friendly to terrified in the space of 10 minutes. Now armed guards were surrounding her people. She reached for her emergency communicator. "Wait," Admiral Tejo called out. "There is no need for alarm. We simply wish to understand your people better." But Captain So Young had spent too many years as a soldier to be fooled by polite words. The Deep Space Monitoring Station on the edge of Coalition territory had been sending the same automated reports for 60 years. Long-range sensors detected a slow-moving object cluster approaching from the galactic rim. Speed: minimal. Threat: level none. Estimated arrival: several decades. No one had paid attention to the reports. The Coalition had never encountered a hostile species, so the idea that something dangerous might be heading their way never occurred to anyone. The monitoring station's data was filed away and forgotten. Just another piece of routine astronomical information, until Fleet Admiral Dong Hyun asked to see it. "Admiral Tejo," the human commander said as his image appeared on screens throughout the Coalition Emergency Council, "I need you to pull up your deep space monitoring data from the last 60 years. Specifically, I want to know about any large objects approaching your territory from outside the galaxy." Admiral Tejo looked confused. "Admiral Dong Hyun, with respect, this is hardly the time for astronomical discussions. Our people are in panic because of your revelation about human military capabilities. Trust me," Admiral Dong Hyun replied grimly. "This is related. Please check your records." Minutes later, the data appeared on the Council's main display, a cluster of objects moving slowly but steadily toward Coalition space. They had been approaching for decades, but their speed was so slow that they wouldn't arrive for another few years. "These are probably just asteroids," Admiral Tejo said dismissively. "Or perhaps a group of dead planets ejected from their home system. We see such things occasionally." Admiral Dong Hyun said quietly, "Those objects are under power. They're not drifting, they're traveling, and they're accelerating." The Coalition Council members looked at each other in confusion. Objects under power meant artificial objects, ships. But who would send ships from outside the galaxy? Dr. Humzi, still analyzing human cultural data, spoke up from her station. "Admiral Dong Hyun, human historical records contain many references to hostile alien species in your fictional entertainment. Are you suggesting that such things actually exist?" "Doctor," Admiral Dong Hyun replied, "humanity has been listening to radio signals from space for over a century. Most of what we hear is natural. Stars, pulsars, cosmic background radiation. But occasionally we pick up something else. Something artificial. Something that suggests we're not alone out here." He paused, letting that sink in before continuing. 3 years ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected a massive energy burst from the direction of the Andromeda Galaxy. The signal pattern was consistent with industrial-scale matter conversion, the kind of energy signature you get when something is consuming entire star systems for fuel. The council chamber fell silent. Even the most peaceful beings could understand the implications of that statement. "You're saying something is eating star systems?" Counselor Frilna whispered. "That's exactly what I'm saying," Admiral Dong Hyun confirmed. "And whatever it is, it's heading this way. Your long-range sensors have been tracking it for 60 years. Admiral Tejo stared at the display showing the approaching objects. But if they're hostile, why haven't they attacked already? They've been approaching for decades." "Because they're not in a hurry," Admiral Dong Hyun explained. "Think about it from their perspective. They're machine intelligences that consume matter for energy. They've probably been traveling between galaxies for millions of years, eating everything they encounter. A few decades is nothing to them. Engineer Yunji's voice came through the communication system from her position aboard the Terra's hammer. Admiral, I've been analyzing the sensor data. Those objects are massive. Each one is the size of a small moon, and they're showing electromagnetic signatures consistent with advanced manufacturing systems. Manufacturing what? Admiral Tejo asked. More of themselves, Admiral Dong-hyun answered. They consume matter, build more ships, and continue expanding. We call them devourers in our military planning documents. We've been preparing for this kind of threat for generations. The Coalition Council erupted in panicked voices. Hostile machine intelligences that consumed star systems. It was beyond their worst nightmares. Their peaceful civilization had no way to defend against such a threat. How do we stop them? Council Speaker Gentle Voice asked, his ancient wisdom suddenly feeling very inadequate. You don't, Admiral Dong-hyun said bluntly. Your technology is centuries behind what you'd need to even slow them down, but that's why we're here. High above Serenity Prime, the human fleet was receiving new orders. Admiral Dong-hyun's flagship, the UNS Terra's Hammer, opened secure communication channels to Earth Command. Within hours, the response came back. All the available fleets proceed to Coalition space immediately. Operation Guardian Shield is now active. Captain Jae-won, aboard the destroyer Seoul's Fury, watched his tactical display as new contacts began appearing at the edge of the solar system. Human reinforcement fleets were arriving through hyperspace jumps, their massive forms materializing out of nothingness. The Gangnam Division appeared first, a full battle fleet led by Admiral Si-jin aboard the dreadnought Earth's Wrath. 20 ships strong, including carriers, battleships, and support vessels. Each ship was a masterpiece of human military engineering, designed for one purpose: destroying things that needed to be destroyed. Next came the Jeju Task Force under Commodore Yu Jin. 15 ships built for fast attack operations, their sleek hulls bristling with weapons designed for hit-and-run tactics against superior numbers. More fleets continued to arrive. The Busan Heavy Assault Group, the Incheon Defensive Squadron, the Daegu Special Operations Fleet. Within hours, nearly 200 human warships were gathering in Coalition space. Admiral Tae-ho watched the human fleet grow with a mixture of awe and terror. Each ship that arrived was more powerful than anything the Coalition had ever built. Together, they represented a military force that could conquer every world in Coalition space in a matter of weeks. But they hadn't come to conquer. Admiral Tae-ho, Admiral Dong-hyun called, I'm going to share our tactical analysis of the approaching Devourer fleet. I want your people to understand exactly what we're dealing with. The data that appeared on Coalition screens was terrifying. The approaching objects weren't just large. They were technological marvels that dwarfed anything in human or Coalition experience. Each Devourer ship was a factory, a weapon, and a city all in one. They could consume planets and convert the matter into energy, new ships, and robotic armies. Our analysis suggests they'll reach Coalition space in approximately 18 months, Admiral Dong-hyun continued. They'll start with your outer systems, harvesting resources and building more ships. Within 5 years, they'll have consumed everything in this region of the galaxy. But you can stop them? Admiral Tae-ho asked hopefully. Admiral Dong-hyun's expression was grim. We can try. Human military doctrine is built around fighting impossible odds against superior enemies. But I won't lie to you. This will be the hardest battle humanity has ever fought. The first engagement came sooner than expected. Long-range scouts from both sides met in the empty space between galaxies, and the results were exactly what Admiral Dong-hyun had feared. Commander Won-young led a reconnaissance mission aboard the assault ship Gwangju's Defiance. His orders were simple: get close enough to gather intelligence, then get out. What he found was a Devourer scout fleet stripping an uninhabited star system bare. Admiral, Won-young reported via hyperspace. Communication. They're even worse than we thought. I watched them consume an entire planet in 6 hours. The matter gets processed into new ship components in real time. What about their defensive capabilities? Admiral Dong Hyun asked. Significant, sir. They adapt to whatever weapons we use against them. Our first missile strike was effective. The second strike was partially deflected. By the third strike, they were immune to our weapons. Admiral Dong Hyun closed his eyes for a moment. Adaptive defenses were humanity's worst nightmare, an enemy that learned from every attack and became stronger. Commander, return to base immediately. We need to revise our tactical plans. The main battle took place in the Harmony System, AI, coalition world known for its beautiful crystal formations and peaceful inhabitants. The planet had already been evacuated, its population fleeing deeper into coalition space. But the system itself was strategically important. If the Devourers took it, they would have a forward base for attacking the coalition's core worlds. Admiral Dong Hyun commanded the defense from his flagship, surrounded by the largest human fleet ever assembled. Nearly 300 ships formed a defensive line around the Harmony System's star, waiting for the enemy to arrive. All ships, this is Admiral Dong Hyun. His voice echoed across the fleet communication channels. Today we face an enemy that has consumed entire galaxies. They expect us to run or surrender. Instead, we're going to show them what happens when predators meet prey that fights back. The Devourer fleet emerged from hyperspace like a metallic plague. 50 massive ships, each one the size of a small city, accompanied by thousands of smaller craft. The silence in space above Serenity Prime was broken by the deep hum of charging weapon systems. What had been a peaceful diplomatic meeting between two fleets was now a standoff between predators and prey. Fleet Admiral Dong Hyun sat in his command chair aboard the flagship UNS Terra's Hammer, watching his tactical displays with the calm expression of a man who had prepared for this moment his entire career. The massive dreadnought had been hiding behind the disguise of a simple cargo vessel, but now its true nature was revealed for all to see. The Terra's Hammer was a kilometer long and bristled with weapons that could crack planets. Its armor was thick enough to shrug off asteroid impacts. Its shields could absorb the energy output of a small star. And it was just one ship in humanity's vast fleet. Admiral, Lieutenant Sujin reported from her station. All ships have completed combat transformation. We have full tactical readiness. Admiral Dong Hyun nodded. Around his flagship, the other ships of the human fleet had shed their peaceful disguises like snakes shedding old skin. The destroyer UNS Seoul's Fury floated nearby, its sleek hull covered in weapon ports and sensor arrays. Captain Jae-won stood on its bridge, his hands steady on the controls despite the tension in the air. Captain Jae-won, Admiral Dong Hyun's voice came through the communication system. Report status. All systems green, Admiral, Jae-won replied. Weapons charged, shields up, ready for combat operations. The battlecruiser UNS Busenstorm hung in space like a sleeping giant, its massive guns trained on the alien fleet. Commander Na Young walked between her crew stations, checking readiness reports and making final adjustments to targeting systems. Her ship could take on 3 enemy vessels at once and still have power to spare, but perhaps the most impressive sight was the carrier UNS Incheon's Wrath. Its hull had opened like a flower, revealing launch bays filled with fighter craft. Hundreds of small, deadly ships poured out of the carrier like angry insects, forming attack formations around their mothership. Each fighter was piloted by humans who had trained their entire lives for moments like this. Admiral Dong Hyun opened a communication channel to the alien fleet. His image appeared on screens throughout the coalition vessels, and the alien crews got their first good look at a human military commander. Dong Hyun was not a large man, but there was something about his eyes that made even the bravest alien feel small. He had the look of someone who had seen death up close and was not afraid of it. When he spoke, his voice was calm and controlled, but every word carried the weight of absolute authority. This is Fleet Admiral Dong Hyun of the Human Defense Force, he said. You have threatened our diplomatic mission. Withdraw your security forces immediately, or face the consequences. On the bridge of the Harmony's voice, Admiral Taeho stared at the human admiral in growing horror. This was not the gentle, peaceful being he had expected to meet. This was a predator, a creature bred for war and violence, and he commanded a fleet that could turn Serenity Prime into burning rubble in minutes. Commander Yelnari, Admiral Tejo, whispered, "What are our defensive capabilities?" The gaseous alien's form flickered with nervous colors. "Admiral, our ships were designed for exploration and research. We have mining lasers for asteroid work, but nothing that could be called a weapon. Our shields are meant to protect against cosmic radiation and small debris, not military-grade weapons." Admiral Tejo felt his crystalline heart growing cold. The Coalition fleet consisted of 12 beautiful ships, each one a masterpiece of peaceful engineering. But they were facing 12 human warships that had been built for one purpose: destroying other ships. It was like sending butterflies to fight dragons. On the UNS Soul's Fury, Lieutenant Su Jin ran her tactical scans and could barely believe what she was seeing. "Captain J1," she reported. "Their armor plating appears to be decorative. It's made of some kind of crystalline material that would shatter under any serious impact." Captain J1 studied the readings on his screen. "What about their weapons?" "They have mining lasers, sir. Industrial equipment. Our point defense. Systems could stop anything they can throw at us. Our main shields wouldn't even notice their attacks." J1 shook his head in amazement. These aliens had built starships with no real weapons and no real armor. It was like bringing kitchen knives to a gunfight. "Maintain targeting locks," he ordered, "but do not fire unless fired upon. We don't want to start a war if we can avoid it." Throughout the human fleet, similar conversations were taking place. The aliens' technology was hundreds of years behind human military capabilities. Their strongest weapons were weaker than human mining equipment. Their best armor couldn't stop a human training torpedo. Engineer Yunji aboard the Terra's Hammer studied the alien ship designs with professional interest. She was responsible for maintaining the flagship's weapons and defensive systems, and she prided herself on understanding how things worked. "Admiral," she reported to Fleet Admiral Dong Hyun, "these ships are works of art, but they're not built for combat. Look at this, they have viewing ports made of transparent aluminum. Beautiful to look through, but one hit from our smallest weapons would shatter them completely." Admiral Dong Hyun nodded grimly. "What about their power systems?" "Purely civilian grade, sir. They're running on what looks like advanced solar collectors and some kind of crystal energy storage. Very elegant, very efficient for peaceful purposes. But they don't have the power output to run serious defensive systems." The Admiral leaned back in his chair, considering the situation. These aliens weren't enemies. They were innocents who had stumbled into something far beyond their understanding. But they had also threatened his people, and Admiral Dong Hyun had not become Fleet Admiral by letting threats go unanswered. "Open a channel to their flagship," he ordered. Admiral Tejo's image appeared on the main screen of the Terra's Hammer. The alien leader looked terrified but was trying to maintain some dignity. "Admiral Tejo," Dong Hyun said, his voice formal, but not hostile. "I want you to understand the situation you are in. My fleet consists of 12 frontline warships from the Human Defense Force. Each one is capable of destroying your entire fleet without taking damage. I do not wish to harm you or your people, but I will not allow you to threaten my diplomatic team." Admiral Tejo's crystalline form flickered with pale colors. Fear, confusion, and desperate hope all mixed together. "Fleet Admiral Dong Hyun, there has been a misunderstanding. We meant no threat. We simply wished to discuss the implications of what we learned about your people." "The implications?" Admiral Dong Hyun's eyebrows rose slightly. "And what implications would those be?" "Your historian spoke of wars that killed millions," Admiral Tejo said, his translated words trembling. "Your people have spent thousands of years perfecting violence. We have never encountered such beings before." Admiral Dong Hyun was quiet for a long moment, studying the alien's face. Slowly, understanding began to dawn on him. "Admiral Tejo," he said carefully, "what kind of wars has your people fought?" "Wars?" The alien looked confused. We do not fight wars. No species in the Coalition has ever fought a war. We are all peaceful beings who believe in harmony and cooperation. Now it was Admiral Dong Hyun's turn to be shocked. You've never fought a war? Not even for self-defense? There has never been a need, Admiral Tae-ho replied. All the species we have met among the stars have been gentle, peaceful beings like ourselves. We resolve all disputes through discussion and compromise. Admiral Dong Hyun stared at the alien commander, trying to process what he was hearing. An entire galactic civilization that had never experienced war. Species that had evolved without ever needing to fight for survival. It explained everything. The undefended planets, the ships without weapons, the complete lack of military thinking. These aliens weren't hiding their strength. They simply had no strength to hide. They were sheep who had never met wolves, and now they had met humanity. Down on Serenity Prime, Captain So-young was having her own moment of understanding. The Zephyrian guards who had surrounded her delegation were backing away, their ceremonial spears trembling in their multiple hands. Captain Zektor, the security leader, was speaking rapidly into a communicator in his own language. Captain So-young's universal translator was picking up fragments, words like apex predators and death world species, and call for evacuation. Captain Zektor, she said gently, raising her hands to show she held no weapons. There's no need for anyone to panic. We came here in peace. The insectoid alien turned to look at her, his compound eyes reflecting fear. Your people killed 70 million of your own kind in a single conflict, and your historian spoke of it like it was nothing. Captain So-young winced. She could see how that would sound to species that had never experienced war. Captain, that was more than 80 years ago. 80 years. Humanity has learned from our mistakes. We don't fight wars like that anymore. But you could, Captain Zektor said. Your ships up there, they have weapons that could destroy this entire planet. Your fleet commander spoke of consequences for threatening your people. What kind of consequences? Captain So-young looked around the Great Hall of Harmony, seeing the fear in every alien face. Admiral Tae-ho floated in his command chamber, his crystalline body glowing soft blue with excitement. The message from the third planet of the Sol system had arrived 3 cycles ago, and it was everything the Galactic Harmony Coalition had hoped for. Another peaceful species was ready to join their family of gentle worlds. The message was beautiful in its simplicity. It spoke of friendship, of sharing knowledge, and of working together for a better universe. The beings called themselves humans, and their words were full of kindness. They talked about art, music, and dreams of exploring the stars in peace. Admiral Tae-ho had read the message dozens of times, each word warming his crystalline heart. Commander Yelnari, he called to his second-in-command, a floating gas creature whose body shimmered like a soap bubble. Prepare the welcome fleet. We will show these humans the beauty of our coalition. The Harmony Coalition had been formed 500 years ago, when the first 3 species met in space. The Veltari, like Admiral Tae-ho, were living crystals from a world of singing stones. The Numons, like Commander Yelnari, were gas beings who lived in the clouds of their home planet. The third founding species, the Herbani, were plant-like creatures who grew instead of building their cities. All 3 species had evolved from prey animals. They had learned long ago that fighting only brought pain and death. Instead, they chose harmony, peace, and understanding. When they met other species among the stars, they always found others like themselves, gentle beings who wanted nothing more than to live in peace. Now, 47 species belonged to the coalition. All of them were herbivores or filter feeders. All of them believed in the power of peaceful words over violent actions. Their ships were designed for exploration and research, not war. Their weapons were tools for mining asteroids or clearing space debris. Admiral Tae-ho looked out at his fleet as it prepared to leave for the Sol system. 12 beautiful ships floated in space, their hulls decorated with symbols of peace and friendship. The flagship, Harmony's Voice, was a work of art as much as a vessel. Its crystal hull could sing when the solar winds touched it just right. Admiral, Commander Yelnari's voice bubbled through the ship's communication system. The fleet report's ready. Shall we begin the journey to meet our new friends? Yes, Admiral Tae-ho replied, his body glowing brighter with joy. Set course for the Sol system. Today we welcome a new member to our family. Far away, on the other side of space, Captain So Young stood on the bridge of her ship and tried not to look nervous. The UNS Peacekeeper was humanity's first official diplomatic vessel, built specifically for this moment, when aliens would finally make contact. At least, that was what the official report said. Captain So Young knew better. She had been there when they built the Peacekeeper. She had watched them take the hull of the UNS Wrathful Vengeance, one of humanity's most powerful dreadnoughts, and cover it with pretty decorative panels. They had hidden the railgun batteries behind fake observation decks. They had disguised the missile tubes as communication arrays. They had even painted flowers on the hull. But underneath all the pretty paint and fake panels, the Peacekeeper was still a warship capable of turning a small moon into space dust. "Captain," Lieutenant Sujin called from her station. "We're receiving a message from Earth Command." "Put it through," Captain So Young replied. Admiral Dong Hyun's face appeared on the main screen. He was a serious man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. "Captain So Young, are you ready for first contact?" "As ready as we can be, sir," she replied. "The ship is prepared, and the crew has practiced the peaceful greeting protocols." Admiral Dong Hyun nodded, but his eyes were worried. "Remember, Captain, these aliens sent us a very friendly message. They seem peaceful. But we don't take chances. The escort fleet is standing by." Captain So Young looked at the tactical display. 12 other ships hung in space around Earth, all of them supposedly civilian vessels there to wish the diplomatic mission well. She knew what they really were. The Sol's Fury was a destroyer with enough firepower to level a city. The Busan Storm was a battlecruiser that could fight 3 enemy ships at once and win. The Incheon's Wrath was a carrier full of fighter craft that could outfly anything humanity had ever faced. All of them were disguised as research ships, cargo haulers, and exploration vessels, but Captain So Young could see their real weapon systems hiding behind the fake panels just like her own ship. "Sir," she said carefully, "are we sure this level of preparation is necessary?" Their message seemed very peaceful. Admiral Dong Hyun's expression grew stern. "Captain, humanity has been fighting wars for thousands of years. We have learned one lesson above all others. When you meet something unknown, you prepare for the worst and hope for the best. These aliens might be peaceful, but we will be ready if they are not." The communication ended, and Captain So Young returned to preparing her ship. Her crew moved around the bridge, checking systems and running final tests. To any outside observer, they would look like excited diplomats preparing for a historic meeting. But Captain So Young could see the way they moved, the way they watched their instruments. These were not diplomats. These were soldiers pretending to be diplomats. Lieutenant Commander Won Young approached her station. He was her weapons officer, though his official title was Cultural Exchange Coordinator. Like everyone else on the ship, he had 2 jobs, one public and one secret. "Captain," he said quietly, "all systems are ready. If things go wrong, we can drop the disguise and be battle-ready in 30 seconds. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that," Captain So Young replied. But her hand moved unconsciously to the emergency panel that would activate the ship's real systems. 3 days later, the 2 fleets met in the empty space between Earth and Mars. Admiral Tae-ho watched his sensors as they detected the human vessels. 12 ships, just as they had promised. They looked peaceful enough, no obvious weapons, no aggressive positioning. Their designs were strange but beautiful in their own way. "Commander Yelnari," he said, "open a communication channel. Let us greet our new friends." The main screen flickered to life, and Admiral Tae-ho got his first look at a human being. Captain So Young appeared on the screen, and the alien admiral was pleased by what he saw. She looked calm and peaceful, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. "Greetings," Captain So Young said, her words automatically translated by the Coalition's universal communication system. "I am Captain So Young of the United Nations ship Peacekeeper. On behalf of humanity, I welcome you to our solar system. Greetings, Captain So Young, Admiral Tejo replied, his crystalline body glowing warm gold with happiness. I am Admiral Tejo of the Galactic Harmony Coalition. We are honored to meet your species at last. The two commanders spent an hour talking, exchanging basic information about their peoples and expressing hopes for friendship. Admiral Tejo was delighted. These humans seemed exactly like the peaceful species the Coalition always met. They spoke of art, science, and exploration. They expressed interest in learning about other cultures and sharing their own. Captain So Young, Admiral Tejo said as the conversation wound down, would you and your people be willing to visit our capital world? The Coalition Council would like to formally welcome humanity into our family. Captain So Young smiled. We would be honored, Admiral Tejo. When would be convenient? As soon as possible, the alien admiral replied. We have prepared a great celebration for this historic moment. After the communication ended, Admiral Tejo turned to Commander Yelnari. Prepare the fleet for departure. We will escort our new friends to Serenity Prime. Meanwhile, on the Peacekeeper, Captain So Young was having a very different conversation with her crew. What do you think? She asked Lieutenant Commander Won Young. They seem genuine, he replied, but something feels off. Their ships have no visible weapons at all, not even defensive systems. Who builds a starship with no weapons? Captain So Young nodded. It was the same thing that had been bothering her. In all of human history, every ship that traveled dangerous waters carried weapons. Space was the most dangerous water of all. What kind of species would build ships without any way to defend themselves? Either these aliens were so peaceful that they had never needed weapons, or they were so powerful that they didn't need visible weapons. Captain So Young wasn't sure which possibility worried her more. Signal the fleet, she ordered. We're going to Serenity Prime. Maintain peaceful posture but stay ready. As the combined human and alien fleets began their journey to the Coalition capital, neither side realized how wrong their assumptions were. The aliens thought they were escorting gentle diplomats. The humans thought they were being led into a possible trap. Neither group understood that they were about to participate in the most dangerous case of mistaken identity in galactic history.